My mother-in-law kicked me out of her house because she disapproved of my decision to give birth at my parents' home. She forcibly removed me while I was still in my pajamas, not even allowing me to put on shoes. With only my phone in hand, I quickly called my mom, who was close by. I waited for her at a local diner. When my mom and sister learned about the incident, they were furious, and they immediately took action, setting into motion a chain of events that would soon spell trouble for my mother-in-law and my husband. My name is Clara, and I'm 29 years old. I married Mark, who is 31, a year ago. Mark's father owns a large company, and Mark is being groomed to take over as the next CEO. He's currently gaining experience by working at one of their smaller branches. We met at work, but I didn't realize the scale of his family's business empire until just before our wedding. Mark had never mentioned that he was in line to be the next CEO, which took me completely by surprise. He was so confident and well-liked, and once he explained everything, it all seemed to fall into place. Suddenly, I found myself in a whirlwind as the wife of a future CEO. After we got married, Mark relocated to the main company's office, while I continued with my job. His father seemed supportive of my career, telling me, "I've heard you're a young leader at your workplace. Keep up the good work." But my mother-in-law, Linda, didn't share the same sentiment. Why would a wife neglect her home to work? She often questioned. She was strongly opposed to me having a job. At first, I thought living separately from Mark's parents would keep any conflicts at bay. I believed that distance would preserve peace between us. But I was wrong. They soon expressed a desire for us to live together. That's when the trouble really began. Mark's father, always busy with work, mentioned how helpful it would be to have someone around the house to take care of things. Mark liked the idea of us living with his parents too. "I'm worried about Mom. I've always lived here. Moving out just wouldn't work for me," he explained. I found myself in a position where I felt I couldn't say no. When they discussed the arrangement at dinner one evening, Linda added, "Since everyone agrees it's a good idea, Clara, do you have any objections?" Feeling cornered, I reluctantly agreed to move in with them. As soon as we were all living under one roof, the challenges began. Linda, who had already expressed disapproval of my job, started making my life miserable. She insisted that I quit my job and take on all the household chores, even though I was still working full-time. If she found any fault with my cleaning, such as a speck of dust or a stray hair, she would demand that I redo the entire task. Initially, I tried to take her criticisms in stride, thinking that being more thorough would keep her happy. But her demands escalated. She began checking impossible-to-reach places like behind the TV or in the corners behind dressers, which I felt was beyond reasonable. I remember one particular night vividly. I had just come home from a long day at work. Exhausted and in need of rest, I thought I'd have a peaceful dinner and perhaps an hour of relaxation before bed. But as soon as I stepped inside, Linda stormed over to me, holding a broom as though it were a weapon. "Clara, the area behind the refrigerator has dust. You need to move it and clean it now." I looked at her, stunned by her demand. "Linda, I just came back from work. Can it wait until the weekend?" I asked, keeping my voice as calm as possible. She narrowed her eyes at me, her voice rising with every word. "No, it can't wait. You are the wife, and this house is your responsibility. I won't tolerate laziness." I had enough. "I can't clean these areas every day," I told her firmly. "I work just like Mark. I'll do a deep clean on the weekends. There's no need to redo everything today, right?" Linda was furious. "How dare you talk back to me like that?" she shouted, her face flushed with anger. She immediately summoned Mark, twisting the story to make it seem like I had been yelling at her. With a tearful performance, she exaggerated my calm suggestions as hostile confrontations. I had hoped that Mark would stand up for me, but his response was disappointing. "Why did you upset Mom like that?" "She was only trying to help," he said, siding with her. That was the moment I realized the stark difference in expectations within our household. Instead of support from my husband, I was reprimanded. From then on, I knew I could only rely on my father-in-law. But his constant absence due to work left me to fend for myself in an increasingly hostile environment. Linda's complaints never ceased, and I learned that standing up to her only made things worse. She would inevitably complain to Mark, who offered no defense on my behalf. To keep the peace, I began adopting a quieter demeanor, even though it was slowly suffocating me. This became my new way of surviving in that house. This uncomfortable routine carried on for nearly a year until I began experiencing health issues. Concerned, I went to see a doctor. The diagnosis turned my world upside down. I was pregnant. Despite my anxiety about how the family would react, I shared the news with Mark first. "You know how I've been feeling sick lately? Well, I went to the doctor, and I'm pregnant," I revealed to him. "That's great. So I'm going to be a dad, huh? Do we know the gender yet?" Mark asked excitedly. "Not yet. Does it matter to you?" I responded, already sensing that something deeper was at play. "Of course it matters. It has to be a boy," Mark declared with confidence. Since he was an only child, I knew there was pressure for us to have a son who could continue the family legacy. What if it's a girl? I wondered aloud, starting to feel nervous. "Don't worry. I'm sure it's a boy," he reassured me, though his insistence made me uneasy. When we found out that we were having a girl, I was overjoyed, but Mark's reaction was much less enthusiastic. "A girl. Are you sure?" "Get it checked again," he said, his voice laced with disappointment. His reaction left me anxious about how Linda would take the news, but we couldn't keep the pregnancy a secret from them forever. One evening, Mark finally told his parents about the baby. My father-in-law was thrilled. "That's wonderful, Clara. We're finally going to have our first grandchild," he exclaimed with genuine happiness. However, Linda's reaction was different. "A girl? Not a boy? It has to be a boy for Mark's sake," she muttered under her breath. Her disappointment was palpable. After that, things only worsened. Linda continued to pressure me about my duties around the house, even going so far as to question whether I planned to quit my job once the baby was born. "Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can slack off on your responsibilities. Pregnancy isn't an illness, you know," she said coldly. Hearing such words from another woman, particularly one who had experienced pregnancy herself, was shocking. It made me seriously question whether staying in this house was the right choice for my baby's well-being. My parents lived about a 4-hour train ride away. After my father passed, my mom and older sister had been living together in our family home. I began to think that going there to give birth might be the safest and most supportive option. With my heart heavy, I called my mom. "Mom, it's me, Clara," I said. "What's going on, sweetheart?" "It's rare for you to call," she replied. "I'm pregnant. And I was thinking, could I come home to give birth?" "You're pregnant? Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Congratulations, honey. Of course, you can come home to give birth. But have you talked this over with your in-laws yet?" My mom asked, always concerned about doing things properly. "Not yet," I admitted. "Well, make sure you discuss it with them. If they agree, I don't see any problem with you coming home," my mom advised. Feeling encouraged, I decided to bring it up with Mark that evening. "I'm thinking of going home to my parents' house for the birth," I said, trying to gauge his reaction. "Oh, going home for the birth? That's fine, I guess," he responded nonchalantly. "My mom's here, so everything should be okay." His quick agreement surprised me, but I still anticipated resistance from Linda. I also turned to my father-in-law for support. "I think it would be best for everyone if I went home for the delivery. What do you think?" I asked him, trying to sound diplomatic. He seemed surprised at first, but then smiled. "If that's what you want, Clara, then it's probably the best decision. I won't oppose it," he said, reassuring me. Relieved to have his support, I prepared to go home without any major issues. But on the morning I was set to leave, I woke up to find my packed luggage missing. My heart sank. Mark and his father had already left for work, leaving me alone to confront Linda. "Do you know where my luggage is?" I asked, hesitating. "Oh, that luggage? I got rid of it," Linda snapped. I don't need a daughter-in-law who causes so much trouble. Don't ever come back, she shouted, pushing me out of the front door before I had a chance to react. I hadn't even put on my shoes. Dressed in just my pajamas and with only my smartphone in hand, I heard the front door lock behind me with a definitive click. Barefoot, and with nowhere else to go, I called my mom. She was furious and promised to come right away. While waiting for her, I walked to a nearby diner where I spent an hour trying to process what had just happened. My mom arrived soon after, and she didn't hesitate. She drove me straight back to our family home, where my sister was already waiting. I told them everything, the harsh treatment by Linda and Mark's lack of support. My mom and sister quietly exchanged words, murmurs that left me wondering what they were planning. The next morning, back at my family home, I went to fetch the newspaper. As I opened the door, I was stunned to find Linda and Mark kneeling outside. Clara, I'm so sorry. It was all my fault. Please don't sever ties with my husband's company, Linda pleaded. Clara, I'm sorry too, Mark added. Please, can we continue doing business with my dad's company? Confused, I had no idea what they were talking about. My mom stepped forward and sternly asked, What does resuming business mean? To avoid further disturbance, my mom invited them inside. Once seated, Mark began pleading his case. Would you consider resuming business with my dad's company? Please, he begged my mom and sister. I turned to my mom puzzled. What does it mean that they're doing business with my father-in-law's company? Yes, we work with one of their subsidiaries, my mom explained. It's one of the major companies within their group, second only to the main office. Mark chimed in. Their top client is your mom's company. This was news to me, and I chuckled. That's news to me too. But my mom's expression quickly turned serious. I can't continue doing business with a family that would treat my daughter so poorly. I'm stopping all business dealings, she declared firmly. Linda, desperate, begged. Please, I beg you. I'll do anything. Could you reconsider? My sister, with a smirk, added, You said you'd do anything, right? So you'll agree to Clara's divorce, and naturally, you'll pay alimony and child support. Her words echoed in my mind. Just the day before, Mark had told me I deserved everything that was happening, showing no remorse. Silently, I agreed with my sister and mom. Any affection I once had for Mark had long since evaporated. Thanks to my sister's well-timed comment, the conversation shifted decisively in our favor. Linda, though reluctant, finally asked, Even if it means agreeing to a divorce, will you resume business? With a knowing smile, my mom picked up her phone and made a call. It seems this woman agrees to my daughter's divorce, she spoke clearly into the phone. From the other end, my father-in-law's voice came through. Got it. Hey, Linda, I'm divorcing you. And Mark, you're fired. These drastic conditions were set for resuming business. My mom's decision was firm. I can't forgive you two for how you treated Clara. You deserve to be punished. The unexpected turn of events left Linda without a husband and Mark without a job. My father-in-law's powerful sway ensured that neither could find support within their social or professional circles. Mark struggled to find a new job in his previous field and ultimately had to switch to customer service. However, complaints soon led to his termination there as well. Now, Linda and Mark live together in a small one-bedroom apartment, barely scraping by on daily wage jobs. Their once lavish lifestyle, funded by my father-in-law's wealth, is gone, and their relationship is strained. Meanwhile, I safely gave birth to a healthy baby girl at home, surrounded by the love and support of my mom and sister. As life has settled down, I plan to join my mom's company, looking forward to a new chapter in my professional life. Mark hasn't followed up about our daughter. I expect him to fulfill his obligations for child support, but I have no intention of letting him be part of our daughter's life. Now, my focus is on moving forward, living a happy and fulfilling life with my little girl.